Hello and welcome to That's Not Spit, It's Condensation. I'm Ryan Beach, and today I am joined by Will Baker, a newly appointed bass trombonist with the Lyric Opera of Chicago. Will and I have been friends for a long time. It's kind of crazy how long we've known each other. We went to Northwestern together as grad students, and Will has played in Alabama a number of times over the years, and so we've stayed connected there. And there are just general friend conversation. Will has sent me articles. I remember you sent me this Gabriel Wolf article on focus of attention that kind of set me on a path of well, what is this? You know what I mean? I just feel like you've always been good for interesting conversations and thinking about things. And that's kind of what I hope we can share today is I want to share Will's sort of story and journey and trajectory as an auditioner. Because Will is very thoughtful about the process, and I just want my audience to hear from you kind of what your journey has been like and some of the highs and the lows of it, and then we can talk a little bit about audition preparation as well, and then whatever else comes up. So that's as good an intro as any. I appreciate you giving me some of your time while your kid is sleeping, and you're just we're making some time for it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much for having me, Ryan. And, I was actually thinking about I honestly, unscripted, unprompted, I don't think I would have been able to win this audition without your help and our relationship and the information and that you've given me, and then also your curiosity and kind of us working together to do stuff. And so our friendship's been invaluable, literally life-changing. And so I'm very honestly honored to be on your podcast and talking about it. So
that's amazing. Yeah, because you were on the podcast forever ago.
Mm-hmm.
On the freelancing, right? You were doing a ton of freelancing, so it was let's talk about that. And now we get to talk about, winning a full-time job in a really great ensemble and organization, and we can talk a little bit about what that's like, because I know you've done a lot of work in symphony orchestras. So what are the differences between that and opera orchestra life? But before we get there, like I said, let's dive into the story. We don't have to go back to the very beginning of every audition you ever took, but I think San Diego feels like as good a starting point as any. If you want to start there or just a little bit before, I'll let you take it. But that's the first audition that we talked about things and tried to organize. So wherever you want to start, but around that time seems good to me if you want sort of a starting place.
Well, I'll start just a little before, just for some context. I was felt at Northwestern, I felt the very behind all the other students, especially bass trombone players, because I had only just started bass trombone and hadn't really played a lot in orchestras. My first time ever playing an orchestra was in undergrad. And so when I got to Northwestern, all of our friends and colleagues had just years of youth orchestra and listening to recordings and so much context. And they were, and especially, and you were winning auditions in school. It felt like, I just felt like I was playing catch up at all times. So although I knew I could contribute in any ensemble that I was in, whether that be big band or brass ensemble or trombone quartet or whatever I was doing. And I knew I could contribute, but I didn't really have a whole lot of self-belief. I thought that, my personal image of myself was that I was behind. I was playing catch up. And so I didn't really think a whole lot of my playing and my confidence outside of my whatever ensemble I was in, if I was to compare myself to other people taking auditions, was really quite low. And so, and I didn't have any successes that, other than getting into Northwestern, that would help me build my self-belief. I would audition for summer festivals and not get in, or audition for the Civic Orchestra and other people were getting in. And so I didn't really have any kind of national audition pool things where I was emerging as somebody who was clearly was doing stuff right. I had relatively low confidence, but at the same time, I did believe that I knew for sure that I could get better at stuff. I had proven at least that I could improve. And so after school, about a year after school, I won my. It wasn't the first audition ever took. I don't remember honestly what the first audition I ever took was, but I won a spot in Orchestra Iowa, and kind of started to build freelancing. And about a year later, I won a spot in Des Moines Symphony. And the first time I auditioned for Des Moines, I made it to finals and didn't win. And then the person that won didn't get tenure. They had another audition. I did win. Crazy enough, actually, that guy who didn't get tenure was the other guy in finals the second time too. And so, but I had carved out a little freelancing career to get experience, but still, I still didn't view myself as competitive on the national circuit, and so. But I was getting my experience. I was working hard and I was playing. And the biggest thing is I was like keeping my musical fire alive through that period after school where like a lot of people don't get work, right away because it's earned and there's not a ton of work out there. And so you have to like fight and claw to like stay alive until your work kind of catches up or until you get good work and you can support yourself and things. So Iowa helped me keep that alive. And at that time I started to take other auditions, but similarly, like took Indianapolis, took Louisville, and I didn't really have great plans as to how to prepare. And I think that, in retrospect, I think that part of it was that I was like a little bit fearful of like what would happen if I poured everything into an audition and didn't get the result that I was hoping for. Then I'd be forced to admit, and it would be kind of reinforcing this idea that I wasn't competitive and I wasn't very good. And I just won these jobs because I was far away from lots of people, and so it was like kind of scary but I knew that I loved playing and I had dreams of getting to play in a full-time group and support myself a little better. So, and then when we decided to leave the Midwest in 2017 and go back to California and be closer to family before starting a family. And around this time, right as we were leaving the Midwest, I started to get slightly better work. Like I got to sub with Detroit a couple times, which was really cool and like pretty mind blowing how great of an orchestra it was. And then when I got back to California, we went to a wedding in San Diego, and while we were down there, I played for the principal trombonist and got called to go and sub, a handful of months later. And same thing. It was like, oh my gosh, this orchestra is really great. And those little like successes were like the first seeds of that like self-belief that like, I was just much more familiar with what like the level was, getting to sit in the middle of it and be part of it, but also believing that I wasn't going to be sticking out in a bad way, that I could contribute, at that level. But still, like I was also still in awe, I still felt a little bit like an imposter, like, oh, are they just calling me because I was nice in my lesson, or they didn't have anybody else to call. And so, but it took a long time for the belief to come. I think it was more like, I started to sub a little bit with San Francisco and then, but it was still more like in San Diego, and not just like here and there. All of a sudden, after a few months, it was like I was getting called. They had this kind of funky opening without it being an opening, but I started to sub more and more and more, and developed like a relationship with the brass players, and really like was settling into the orchestra and loving, like having so much fun. Like it's a really, really fine orchestra. And the principal trombonist, Kyle Covington, was also huge for like helping me build up that belief, I actually would stay at his house and he'd hear me practicing. He'd pop his head in. He'd be like, hey, why don't you try this? Or what do you think about this? And we'd like ride to and from rehearsals and talk about what was happening. And he really valued my opinion and my ears and my contribution. And then was always telling me like, hey man, you're doing really great. Like I love what you're bringing to the section. And musically, but also just like off stage too. The work was, I helped make work more fun in a positive place, and it helped our music making, kind of go up. And so when the position finally became actually open and there was an audition in 2019, I was going all in for it. And that was around the time we started talking about preparation, and you had got into your powerlifting and thinking about periodization and stuff. And I had never had a really codified plan for trying to take this music and really polish it and perfect it, polish it, just reaching a level of consistency that was, again, like kind of competitive on that national level. And so I think I did my first kind of the early like Ryan Beach periodization on my stuff. And it was really helpful. I felt really great. I started at a slower tempos, and I slowly worked things up over time. And but I didn't win. I did advance from prelims to semis, but in the semis I just kind of was a little bit frozen, and it was pretty heartbreaking, to be totally honest. I was like, I had dreams of living in San Diego and taking my kids to the beach and playing in that orchestra, and I did my best to kind of keep my head up, and also to like look back at the prep and be like, okay, kind of what was missing. And for me, it was I found that I had a little bit of trouble, or I had done such a great job practicing, and I didn't do a really great job transitioning from like that into just like a performance mindset. And so, so I felt like when I got on stage on that semi round, I was thinking about stuff that I didn't need to think about. I was focused on other stuff rather than just like, delivering a message and a story and having like complete conviction and complete confidence in that product. I was thinking I was still kind of in that practice phase. Yeah. What's up?
Yeah. I was just going to interrupt real quick. You at this point, like San Diego's a very good job. You're working there regularly, and the income that comes from that is nice, and the musical opportunities. Like, did you obviously the level of like this opportunity won't be mine shortly, right? Because someone else won the job. But like in terms of family and stuff, like what did that feel like, where you knew that this good source of income was going to like stop at a certain point in time, and you're going to lose this like ability? Like, what I'm curious, as someone who thinks about this also, providing for your family, like, was there some worry there, or did you believe you had enough other work that you would just be able to move into other places and be able to make it happen?
There was a little bit of worry. I had around that time, so there was a little bit of time after not winning the audition where before Kyle Mendeguccia started. So I had a little bit of buffer time. I also had, I had a Monterey Symphony. So I had like a freelance or a smaller regional job, still have, in the Bay Area. So I had some freelancing stuff in the Bay Area that I had been turning down to go fly down to San Diego. So I knew that there would be some stuff, and I knew that I could, I really like teaching. So I knew I could build up a little bit of teaching to take, to kind of ease the transition. And also I'm really fortunate that my wife is has a great job, and so there was a mixture of things that made it financially wasn't going to be the biggest stress, or wasn't going to be life changing. So that was good. That was very helpful. Although the later with after I was playing in San Francisco, and then they had the San Francisco audition, and I didn't win. That was much more, like, I could say, traumatic. Like I really could feel my my like window of opportunity was really closing. But we, at this time with San Diego, our first child was just like maybe one, or he was only 6 months to 1 year old. So like he didn't really cost any money yet. And so it was not, I wasn't too worried. I had confidence that I was going to be able to survive. Yeah.
So then at this point, that loss where you said it was like pretty like devastating or whatever, the most of the loss was just thinking about the life that you were, it's like hard not to, right? You're like, I've been doing this job. It would be cool to do it. Like moving to San Diego. It was just kind of the loss of that was like and then obviously playing with that group. That was kind of like the loss you were feeling. Cool. I just want to sort of at each stage, because like we've all felt like certain emotions in these types of ways. And I think it's just going to make the eventual lyric story like that much sweeter, Anyway. Yeah. So after San Diego, like, you and I worked together a little bit and we were talking about these types of things. We didn't work together necessarily in a formal capacity, just like sharing ideas at that point. So you said you wanted to move into, you needed to add in more performance type things. So what was the next audition that you took and how did you adjust for that? And kind of how did that go?
Well, so San Diego was 2019 and then and then COVID hit, so the things kind of paused for a while. And so that was when I started getting into trying to, make like educational resources and
that's right.
And different things. And then after or during the pandemic, the bass trombonist of San Francisco Symphony retired. And so then I had been mixing in with them occasionally on like, kid concerts and movies and things. But being like local and someone that they liked, I was able to play with them a little bit coming out, like returning from the work stoppages. Started to play with them a little bit more and mixing in and that helped a lot financially, obviously. Also helped start to build that belief. I'm trying to think, the next audition I took was I think San Francisco had their first bass trombone audition in 21, I believe. And so then I don't know if I had I did. I went, once again, went all in for. Actually, I guess it was two auditions. It was San Francisco and Cleveland. I made a tape for Cleveland and got invited, and then also got to go to do or work on the San Francisco list. And those two together made a pretty massive list. And because San Francisco is a little bit their rep tends to be a little more modern, and Cleveland tends to be like very traditional. So it had this really awesome scope between the two. And so and also like the things that you and I had talked about, we had refreshed. I kind of did a new take of that periodization to get up to build up that polish. And again, like felt really good, made lots of progress. But I think I don't think I had totally learned the lesson from the San Diego audition. I still eventually what I ended up doing was finishing that preparation process earlier so that I could have more time just playing rounds, more time really settling in. But I hadn't, fully gotten there yet. But those auditions in 21, although I didn't win, I made semis in San Francisco. I don't think anybody even advanced in Cleveland. But I could feel the progress like building, and I also I was still I was very fortunate that San Francisco didn't hire anybody. So then I began to work with them more and more and more. And that also helped raise my my average level and build that confidence. And it was just kind of like a constant process of trying to figure out, how to do what everyone around me was doing, and how to, I knew that I could contribute. Again, I knew I could contribute in an ensemble and I could sound great, but it was being able to shine by myself that was good. That was the last thing to try to figure out, and how to make it sound really special and really convincing. And so I had some time working. I was very fortunate, got to do a lot of work with San Francisco for a few years. I took a Atlanta audition in when it was 22 or 20, maybe end of 22. Didn't really do enough prep. Was in the middle of a lot of work. Went out there hoping to just fall back on my my average level I was getting at work, and ended up being just a total mess, or mentally, and was wow, I definitely don't want to do that again, So there's definitely ups and downs. And then came back again into another San Francisco and Cleveland audition came around. And this would have been in the fall of 23. And so our second son was born in August of 23. And so like kind of everything changed. We like in the spring of 23, we had to move. So we moved out of a place where I could practice into an apartment because it was kind of what we could afford. So I couldn't practice in my place. We had our now 2 kids, and it's a little different when the first baby arrives. For those who don't have kids, when the first baby arrives, you can kind of like both parents can kind of go with whatever flow they want. Like the baby can sleep, you can watch shows, you can do whatever and stuff. But when the second baby arrives and you have the first kid's older, somebody's got to be ready to roll at 7 a.m. when the older kid wakes up. So we had a little bit different roles, and I realized I knew that these auditions were coming, and I knew I wanted to win. And the only way I was going to get enough time on task to have, solid fundamentals and like a deep understanding and like consistency with the music was to wake up early and do a session, so we would at like 5 a.m. So I'd wake up and change a diaper and hand off baby to mom to nurse. And I was like gone and would hop in the car, drive down the street about a mile to a parking garage.
I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah. Drive down the street and practice from like 5:30. And I would be back. I needed to be back in our house at 7 a.m. Otherwise, like the 5-year-old or 4-year-old at the time would be like looking for me and potentially getting into trouble. So I would do my morning practice sessions, which I grew to just really love, and be home so that at 7 a.m. My wife could sleep, I could have the boys, and go on with the rest of our day and stuff. So I ran that morning session and then an afternoon session for all of August and basically all of September, getting ready for these auditions. And sometimes, depending on work, might get an evening session too. But it was, a very similar process of starting slowly and building up. But I was able to finish that process earlier. And the last week or maybe 2 weeks before the auditions, I set up a different mock audition with musicians in town. So musicians in the San Francisco Opera, other freelancers, anyone I could. So with the hopes that, I would do, 8+ days of mocks, have a day off, and then I just show up, and it was like to my prelim, it'd be, or my semi. But it would be just, this is what I do for the last couple of weeks. I've just been playing the list, Right. And I felt much more in command. It was just everything about the audition day was kind of predetermined. It felt predetermined. It felt like it was what I was. It was my job. My job was just to play the list for people. It had been, and it felt very comfortable. I played really well in Cleveland. Played pretty well. I was a little surprised that I advanced to the finals. But upon listening back, and I did play well and got some nice comments, but they chose.
Can I interrupt you real quick? Sorry.
Yeah, please.
Before we get to the result of this, can you just talk about where is your head walking into the audition? Because I know you, and I know like the way you would send me a text and talk about this. Can you just share a little bit about what amount of confidence you were walking in there with, or like, what is your goal for all of the, does that make sense what I'm asking?
I think so. Well, I mean, definitely. So I think that it's really important that, like, for me, I only took auditions that I wanted to win or believed I could win. The only time I took auditions where I didn't believe I could win was when we were like, at the very beginning, when I had that lower self-belief, I would only take the auditions that I could drive to, something that I would not spend a lot of money on, like in Indianapolis or Louisville or, Milwaukee Symphony sub audition or something type of thing. And those ones I knew it was a long shot. these ones coming in, especially for like Cleveland, I got invited, which was very cool. My teacher, Michael Mulcahy, stuck his neck out for me and recommended me. So I got invited to that audition, and I knew it would be a small pool of applicants, and they'd all be great. But the fact that there's only a handful of people, like somebody's got to win, so the chances were really strong, and or that I knew I had a great chance. And similarly in San Francisco, I had been playing with them, and I had a very high belief in myself at this point. I knew that I had gone through those, like the San Diego audition and the Atlanta, and I'd gone through and those first Cleveland and San Francisco, and experienced the progress and was believing in that progress. And I knew that if I had a good day, that and especially if I made it to finals and there was a section round, I was going to be very hard to beat. I knew that for sure. Especially in San Francisco, if I had a section round, I'd be very hard to beat. So there was a good amount of confidence for sure.
And like you're going in there to win, basically. That's like where your head's at. You're like, I want to win this audition. Because I feel like that's important.
Yeah.
Because you hear these stories from a lot of people where it's like, I went in there, like people who have won an audition, and they go in there and they're like, I like determined, like set my intention to like win this audition. And then they won the audition, and you like hear those stories, but you less often hear the story where it's like, I did all of that. And then we'll obviously get to the result, but spoiler alert, like these two, he's in lyrics, so we know that those didn't work out. And so, I mean, I love it from your perspective, but I just want to kind of frame it in that, like you're walking in there assuming and believing like you're ready to do this. Like you're prepared, your head's in a good spot, you're feeling confident. And like,
definitely,
all of that is necessary. Like it's 100% necessary to win a job, but that still even won't guarantee anything. And I think that's something that's really hard about auditioning, because you put so much of yourself and you work so hard to get yourself into a spot, and then it can be deflating, which I'll let you say whatever you want to say about it. But anyway, you pick it back up in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely believed it was possible, I knew, but I also knew without a doubt that I needed to play my best. I think that in all these auditions, I think the goal is to win, and you want to win, but like you never expect to win. The main hope is that you go and you represent yourself, like what you play the way you play. You don't have like something weird happen or some big dip or like nerves take over or something. The goal is to go in there and like play like I've been playing for the last few weeks. That's the main goal. So that and then no matter what, like if you go in and play what feels like your best, and you represent yourself well, I find that it's much easier to live with the result no matter what. The heartbreak, the biggest heartbreak comes from going in and like doing something totally out of character, or having that's the heartbreak. Or sometimes like if you play your best and you get eliminated, that can also be heartbreaking. But I tend to try to record myself if I can in the audition, so that I can at least walk away and have an objective way to like listen back and be like, oh, my time was bad, or oh, that was out of tune, and at least it softens the blow when you realize like, oh yeah, I made some mistakes, that's why I got eliminated. The question mark is the worst thing ever, but so I try to eliminate the question mark. That way I can have an objective representation of what I did. But the biggest thing, again, like the goal is to win, but really the goal is to just play your best, play and live with the results. Because, it's a very honest enterprise, what we do. It's like, there's some things that you can do. There's some things you can't do. And hope is not really a strategy. You do your prep, and, before you even get to the audition, like, what your best is. It's pretty clear. And no amount of inspiration in the moment is going to all of a sudden make you way better. You just have to do your work over time to bring your playing, like have your strong fundamentals, but also work on the rep to so that and you believe. Like, I think a lot of that belief comes from like those rounds of those previous weeks, listening back to what you're actually getting, and if most of the time you're hearing stuff, you're like, I really like how this is going, then you're going to go into that audition feeling pretty good.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
so I was definitely confident, but mostly just trying to play my best.
Makes
And
sense. Yeah.
for me, like on that really just takes like on the day of, or I try to get a bunch of rest right before, and in the days leading up to it, and then on the day of, I do have a little bit of like meditation practice for staying focused, and singing through stuff and saving my playing energy for the stage, and just kind of believing that it's gonna be there. But yeah, I didn't end up winning, and the San Francisco one was especially tough. Like I'd been playing there for a while. My family, my friends, everybody knew that the audition was coming, and it was a major letdown. And now with two kids, and then I knew that they were. I knew that they hired somebody, and so then it was really like, oh God, this has been my main employment for over 2 years, and it's about to come a few months from now, like that is gone, like gone. And so that was pretty traumatic. It took a few late night conversations with my wife on the sofa about like, what does our future look like? Now that this is gone, there was no real playing opportunities in the Bay Area. The opera job was locked up for at least a handful more years. The ballet job is locked up. The symphony job was going to be Chris Bassett, who won, is a fantastic dude and a great player. I knew he was going to come right in and just be a perfect little puzzle piece. So he was going to be fine. So there was a big realization of like, okay, if I'm going to play music for the rest of my life, which I want to do, we're going to have to move eventually. Like I don't think I was going to be satisfied playing, taking on a bunch of students to be able to pay for our life, or to drive many hours to smaller regional groups to play. It doesn't really work really well with childcare and both parents working at things, and it wasn't going to make enough money to displace my wife's job. So there was I could really feel the clock ticking, and my like window. I knew I was in my window of opportunity. I had been having success at jobs, but also having some success at auditions. But I could feel that window just like closing, and it was very scary. To be completely honest, it was extremely scary. Did as best I could. I was a little distracted because I still had some. I'm fortunate. I love my family, and I had the rest of a large chunk of the rest of the San Francisco season to play. So that was a lovely distraction. And then a couple more auditions popped up of possibilities. The Lyric audition and the Nashville audition were both. They kind of worked right next. They were right next to each other. And so I had something to kind of help put that like. I don't want to call it a failure because I know I put a lot of work into it and I made a lot of progress. And the eventual success really came from the work I put into these other auditions. But I didn't get what I wanted, so but I was able to put it behind me to kind of look ahead to these other opportunities. And so that helped, but it was still tough, to be totally, that it was really, I was pretty dark for a little while. I did have a couple, like I was at work. I think we played like Beethoven 9 or something. I'm trying to remember there were a couple weeks right after that audition, where I was right back at work with San Francisco, and we played like Beethoven 9 and something else. And my new focus was, well, I just need to play so good that when the new guy arrives, they just can't hire him. They can't give him tenure because he just didn't sound as good as me. I just kept telling myself that, like, that was all I could think of for a little while. And, we played like the Planets. So there was a little bit of like revenge tour action.
Yeah.
If you can find that broadcast, the trombones sound really good in that broadcast. But, just did my best to kind of keep moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how much time was between the San Francisco and the Lyric / Nashville time?
Mm-hmm. Lyric Nashville was like, I think March 9th and 10th or something like that. And San Francisco and Cleveland was the beginning of October. So there was a little bit of time. I can't remember.
When you did the audition in San Francisco in October, Chris was in St. Louis, right? So you knew you were at least going to be able to play out the rest of the season or as much as possible. And then so you had that chance to then take, these other auditions while still making, but obviously you don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, I could see how that would be like, okay, cool. I've got another shot. Like I got so close this time. Let's go for it again.
Yeah. Although I will say, I just talked about like doing great job preparing for San Diego and the two Clevelands and the two San Franciscos. My lyric prep was the least like thorough of all of them because it was like we had some family trips, we went and visited my family over my parents over New Year's. And I was going through the lyric stuff, like playing through the solo, playing through the hot spots of the excerpts. But we got back from that, and it was like I worked like all of January in San Francisco and we had a bunch of great rep and stuff that I needed to really be like dialing in for work. And I was still kind of, like I said, I was still kind of on like revenge tour, trying to make it so that they couldn't give Chris tenure or, couldn't hire him, which didn't work, of course. But I played really well. But so I had work to do. And then we had, my grandfather passed. And so we had like there were a few weeks where, some time where like things was a little crazy with family things. And so like playing was on and off. And so like, if I look back at like my kind of chart of when I was playing, there's my preparation, there were gaps that like, that were unique to this lyric Nashville setup. There was more gaps, more like life stuff got in the way of like a seamless, perfect, whatever, preparation regime. And so I wasn't able to do as thorough or as consistent of prep and also not nearly as many mocks. My practice now I was doing morning stuff, but I also then would go to work. My practice was kind of like around services and sometimes like I said, early morning or late at night. I was very fortunate for lyric that I took the last lyric audition in 2017 when Graham Muchler won. And so I was familiar with the opera rep. A lot of times like an opera audition and symphony audition will have different repertoire, although a lot of symphony rep comes from the opera rep. But there were some things that were specific to opera that I at least wasn't learning it for the first time. I was like refreshing stuff that I had dug into in the past. I had even actually in 2017 had taken a lesson with one of the lyric trombonists on the repertoire. And so I was able to look back through my notes and even listen back to that lesson, to the things that he said, so that I had very specific goals for each excerpt. And that was so helpful. So I knew what I was going for. But it was far from perfect. And I didn't have a lot of expectations, like same thing. My wife didn't really love living in Chicago when we were here before. So, I didn't put all my eggs in that basket by any means. I just wanted to come out and try to play my best. But a lot of the things around the audition were familiar. Like the building was familiar. I knew Chicago. I was able to stay with a friend. Actually, I think there's a number of things that led to the success, but one of them I got from Nick Platoff. He recommended and swears by like overdosing on sleep before you're in the days leading up to an audition. And if you have the ability to travel maybe a day before you would otherwise travel, so that you can get there and settle in and sleep before your audition. And so my first round of my lyric audition was on a Saturday. And so I flew to Chicago on Thursday, got in really late at night, got to my hotel, went to bed, woke up. I had Friday. I went to a Chicago Symphony matinee concert on Friday. And it was the first time here in CSO in many years. And hearing Esteban, they played an amazing program. Death and Transfiguration, Mendelssohn Violin Concerto, and Lutoslawski Concerto for Orchestra.
Wow.
I was up in the gallery sitting next to this random woman, and we like a grandma, and we were just chatting and stuff. And I was just like so inspired by the concert, and the weight of the silence in CSO's hall is unbelievable. Now, like, it was so different experiencing that concert after being when I was a student here, I hadn't listened to a whole lot of orchestras, hadn't been in many halls, hadn't played a whole lot of orchestra stuff. And now, after more experience, like being back in that hall, feeling like the weight of the silence and the weight of the like tradition, hearing the sounds and like how awesome the orchestra sounded. And I was so like supercharged. And then I went and stayed at my buddy's house and got great sleep. And then I went and I played really well on Saturday and was able to advance. And then I remember too, being in that first round, they gave me the list of what we were going to play. And the last excerpt on the list is my favorite excerpt from the entire list. It's this big moment from Salome. And I stared at it. I was like, oh, I just want to get to play that one. I love that one so much. And I started playing, and things are going well, and I'm cruising. And like, I finished the one right before, and I'm listening, and no thank yous. And I was like, yes. and like getting to like having that feeling right before playing an excerpt, pretty amazing feeling. Just like so excited to get to dig into this music that I love. And so got to play it, and I walked out feeling pretty good, and then advanced. I was really excited. And it was really a unique process. They only advanced 6 people out of the prelims. And so they decided, rather than having a semi-round, they would just take 6 of us to finals. So we had audition was Saturday, Sunday was off, and Monday was going to be finals for 6 people. So with Sunday off, I was trying to figure out what to do. And I knew I didn't want to tire myself out, but I did want to touch some things. And I was lucky. I reached out to Yoko Yamada, the faculty pianist at Northwestern, and I was able to go meet her. Like, a student let me into Northwestern to practice a little bit. I met up with Yoko. I got to play through the solo with just this amazing pianist.
She's good.
Oh, so good. And it was just like major memory lane of just like so many happy memories playing music with Yoko. She gave me great feedback. And so same thing. I'm like all just charged up from being back in this inspiring place and around these inspiring people, and then went in on Monday and played great. And even in my last round too, I played something out of order. I got to the end of the first page and played like the first Valkyrie excerpt or something, and then I flipped the page and went to the next one and left one off. The dragon scene from Siegfried. Played the last one, felt great, and they're like, "Would you please go back?" And I'm like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
but then at the same time, I got to end with the dragon scene from Siegfried, which is like probably my second favorite excerpt. So then I, played that, and it panned out. So it was a wild experience, but very, very fun, and so thankful how it panned out.
So, like, what's that feeling like for you when you're told?
When they picked me?
We're going to hire Will Baker. Like, what's that feeling like after everything that you just, you summarized like a number of years of your life and going through things in the past, 45 minutes. So, like, what is that payoff feeling like?
It was very surreal. It was also, I think, there was a lot of joy. There was a huge, huge feeling of relief. Like I was talking about, I felt like my window of opportunity was really closing, but it was a massive, massive relief to be like, oh, it happened. I still needed to go home, and I still needed that night. I was flying to Nashville for my Nashville prelim. So that was a little wild, but I knew it was very, very freeing and a huge relief. And just so surreal. To have them come out and say that. The other finalists were great, super nice people. And they were very, very warm and congratulatory. It was really nice. But yeah, it felt really, really good. And it's still kind of surreal, to be totally honest. Although we've like went through all the process to move here and all the stuff, but it still feels pretty wild to hop on the train and go downtown to work. But and it was amazing. Like you feel like on top of the world for a little bit, obviously. And then the next day, that night, I fly to Nashville, and the next day I play Nashville Symphony audition, which beautiful downtown, beautiful hall. Played well in my first round, advanced to semis. I'm like, oh my god, like this is, this is amazing. I want to win them both. Let's go, Yeah. And then I got to the semi round. I looked around, and everybody in semis, there was all these just like people that had recently won 1 years and recently won regional things, and none of them were at Lyric. And I was sitting there like, wow, thank you, Nashville Symphony. You like split the field, or possibly split the field. Like many people had to choose which one to do.
I see.
And I was like, wow, like, and I played my semi round. I didn't advance to finals. And I was just like thinking that night about like all the things, and, like there's quite a bit, a lot of hard work, but also so much luck,
Sure.
So much luck to create all the circumstances that lead to eventually somebody being in a position or winning a job. And it just reminded me that like, how many times have I heard someone say like, you don't, well, first of all, you miss every shot you don't take. That was one thing that kept echoing in my mind. And the other thing was, you don't have to be the best in the world. You just got to be the best on the day in the place. And step one is showing up. And obviously, you got to prepare and stuff, but you got to show up. And I was very thankful that I was one of the people that showed up, and because it's just it was a wild set of circumstances, but it's I'm really happy how it worked out, obviously, and hopefully it's just the beginning. So we'll see.
It's cool to hear. It's really cool to hear your perspective on this. And let's assume that besides the committee hearing you and saying, we like this person's playing, what would you say is, especially considering your preparation maybe wasn't as optimal or as ideal as it could have been, what would you say is something that you did in the final round of Lyric that you may not have done as well in the final round of some of these other auditions? Is there something that you could point to that you felt like helped you kind of get that last little bit in crossing the line, Is there something like that? Or do you just feel like you did things very similarly, you played similarly, and this job was just the one that was supposed to work out?
I don't know if that I did anything different, but I think it was, it took all those previous auditions for me to slowly refine and figure out what I needed to do to play my best in the moment. So, the combination of like finishing my prep early so that I could really focus 100% on performing, and like, letting some of the little things go so I could focus big picture, and make the excerpt like distill the excerpt down to like a certain feeling or one character. It took, like, I had to figure that out over time. Similarly, like something as simple as like when I'm on stage in my auditions, when I flip to whatever the next excerpt is, like letting the music get into my body before playing. So like if you're ever a proctor, you will see me like dancing to Hungarian March before I play Hungarian March because to like let the music get into me. Because again, like the times that I didn't play well, the music was like kind of dull, or it just felt like distant, like I was listening to somebody play rather than like being in the middle of it. And so my way of dealing with that was trying to get the groove into my body a little bit, and to help me stay loose, but really just to be grooving and feeling it, feeling the music. But I think I don't know if it was any one thing. It was really just like little lessons and little adjustments along the way that helped me kind of deliver that same thing,
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to derail this too much. The only reason I asked that question is like in my most recent audition compared to the previous ones I took, I felt like I did a better job of like just being like in the thing I was trying to create. Almost like I did better at like actually creating music rather than trying to like mathematically replicate. If it's like such a weird, very subtle difference, but I felt like I was just like you said, I was getting myself into the music and then I was just making phrases. But I did better at just like, here's a phrase, and if I miss a note, like the music is not going to stop, and you're actually not going to care that I made a mistake. And almost the headspace was, I can make as many mistakes as I want and still win. That's like how committed like. I wasn't thinking that, but that's almost like, I don't want to say that's what happened because I didn't make that many mistakes, but you get what I'm saying. So I was just curious if you felt like you were able to be that much more committed musically, or like I felt like I also played with color well. Like I made distinct differences between different composers. I felt like I did that well, better than in previous auditions. And I feel like it made such a dramatic difference of like not advancing in the last however many auditions I've taken to the outcome that I got. You know, I haven't formally like talked about this yet. So anyway,
of course.
But I just was wondering if there's anything like that for you.
Yes, I think that is very closely linked, or maybe another way of saying the like getting out. You know, because when you do the slow practice and the buildup, as I listen back to stuff, you're listening for every little pitch thing and articulation thing, and you're listening to all these like really like nitty gritty details, and you know and it's very important. You know, you have to do that. But then at some point, we also have to like zoom way out and be like, you know, Fountains of Rome needs to be joyous. And if it's not joyous, it doesn't matter how many little nitty gritty details you have, you know, or like, or Hungarian March like has to be brilliant and exciting. And if it's not Hungarian March, you know? So like I think that is I totally agree. I think that I was much more able to trust that the practice was done and just like get totally into like this character of whatever it is, of whatever character was, and be willing to go for it boldly, even if there were burrs and misses and you know like imperfections. I was definitely so much more committed to just that big picture feeling of each piece. I think that helped a lot. I think that makes it much more convincing than perfection.
Yeah. I don't, it's related. I don't want to derail us because this is like, you know, this is like my rant or whatever, diatribe, but it's like, that's like what I love about the programs is the programs that I work with and that I share with people and that we did. It's like, that's so valuable for the nitty gritty thing. Cause you're coming back to things semi regularly and you can dig in. But I think what I realized is that it's supposed to serve a purpose and it can't be the end in and of itself. And so you need this process that makes it so you're aware of your pitch tendencies, and it gives you opportunities to solve problems that you need to have solved so you can navigate excerpts more consistently. But that shouldn't be the end in and of itself. That is just to serve like letting go of the technical so you can fully give yourself over to the musical and have the technical still be there. And I feel like, like I was just curious if you felt that, because it's interesting to me for you to get so close and then to have one cross the line. And so, I was wondering, like, because like if you think that that's possibly it, then that's part of the process that you're going to try to replicate the next time and the next time and the next time. Is it's not just that I got to like get that into the music like I was when I was able to be successful.
I think it's, they're hand in hand, and the I don't think I don't think I would have been able to get that into each character without the prep work, because if you're going for joyous on Fountains of Rome, but you haven't done the nitty gritty things to build up those good habits, then when you make mistakes, you get knocked off of that character, and you get it takes away from your groove and your flow, and but with that great prep, your consistency gets higher. You're less likely to get knocked off your stuff, and you're more likely to just let it go. And so, that definitely all contributed.
Well, I don't want to keep you for a ton longer, but I would be curious, and maybe listeners would be curious as well, for you just to outline some differences between opera life and symphony orchestra life, and like full-time opera life. Obviously, I've played operas, but what is that life like versus symphony? What are some of the differences and challenges and all that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Well, so I don't think I realized how different they were, until I started. There's a number of differences. Well, just generally, at least personally, the schedule is different. In symphony, you have new repertoire every week, and so my life playing in symphony was like I would have my rep for the upcoming weeks, and I would do my routine, and then I would basically work kind of chronologically. I would work on the music that was coming up soonest. I would work on my bits that I needed to look at, and then I would look at the following week and the following week, and slowly that music would just kind of move through and into focus and out of focus and gone. And so, but you always had this kind of like steady stream of, I don't want to say fires to put out, but like challenges and nuggets to work on from work. You had this steady stream of stuff that would hopefully bring some kind of balance, to your playing. But definitely it was just new stuff all the time. And so, and then also the actual legitimate, like going to work schedule was very consistent of like, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday-ish rehearsal, and then some concerts over the weekends. And, really, really fun. Also on a symphony, you're sitting on the stage and really like in the back row, you're really thinking about projecting that sound out. You're living, I got used to listening to myself like 20 feet away from me. I mean? My ears are thinking about like our group sound, but out in front of us. And in an opera, or at least in lyric, it's very different. Like go in reverse. The sound, we're in this pit. You don't have to really project any of it. You just need to, because all of my sound is going, if we have this pit shaped like this, all our sound is going to the middle and then up. It's kind of a weird visual representation, but it goes to the middle and up. So you don't have to, like, fortissimo it's a very different set of dynamics. I never have to project with the same sort of energy that or decibels that I did with at least I haven't yet, that I did with in a symphony. It's much more about like colors of sound and intensity of sound to create these different characters that support the story. And then also there's a lot more like transparency, because really we're like, the orchestra is creating the world that the singers are living in. And so it's much more about, we're serving this like bigger picture rather than just being the big picture. So there's a lot more decay and transparency, and generally just more soft playing, I would say. I'm spending more time like closer to piano than fortissimo in the opera. There are obviously moments where you play big, but it's, like I said, it's a different sort of big. It's more intensity of sound rather than like pure decibels and sending that sound out. So that's been a very interesting change and challenge. And I definitely, I have been working on my soft playing to be able to do everything comfortably. Actually, the tuba player in lyric, tuba player and also the principal trombonist, they both play in Grant Park Symphony in the summers. But the tuba player was saying, he was like, yeah, before opera season, he's like, the month before opera season, I just work nonstop, like tons and tons and tons of soft playing. And then like the month before Grant Park starts, I do tons and tons and tons of loud playing.
Yeah,
he's like,
kind of
it's
resensitizing.
Just like, just opposite, or not opposite, but different sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
So there's that element of like the sound making. And then the schedule is also different. It's, Lyric does right now 6 productions, 6 operas a year, season. And we do a couple other concerts that have some other music, but generally six operas, and I think it's going to be slowly scaling up towards 8 or something in the coming years. But compared to different music every week, that's very different. We have I've played, now that I've been here for a few months, and I've played 3 operas. That's, although there's each opera is a few hours. That's way less notes, way less stuff to learn. So and you kind of onboard the opera in a week or 2 of rehearsals, and first starting with just the orchestra, then adding in some singers, and then adding in staging and stuff. You onboard the operas, and then you get into the run, and it's definitely not like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's like, you might open on a Friday night, and then your next show is the next Tuesday. And then there's this, it's a wild feeling to just show up on a Tuesday and play Rigoletto. And that's all you did. And the last time you played it was 5 days before or something. And so, and I can only imagine what that's going to be like when you show up on a Tuesday and you play like Salome or something, or Lohengrin. That's going to be also wild. But so just a very different actual work schedule.
Sure.
But it's really fun. It's very cool. I found that it's given me, well, at first, since we just moved, so much of my focus has been reestablishing home base for my family, and starting our new routines. My son goes to kindergarten, and figuring out babysitters and all those things. So we've had a lot of new routines to learn and start. So to be totally transparent, my personal practice time has changed a lot. It's not the same as it was leading up to an audition. Sure. Or even in the middle of a San Francisco season where you're always working on the next week's music. It's more do your routine, and then touch a couple spots in the opera, but usually there's only a few, or at least so far there's only been a couple spots to really dig into. And then it's been more about for me, it's been working on I've been more working on playing some etudes and trying to zoom out and think about what my weaknesses are to really think long term. I've been working on contrabass trombone, so that hopefully next season, we don't have our rep yet, but hopefully contra's needed, and I would love to be good enough and confident enough to be able to be the person that plays it, rather than bringing someone in to play it. So working on, playing etudes on bass, back and forth from bass to contra, and just trying to stay flexible and just keep on working. And then also just, I just went to the Chicago Symphony brass concert, and it was very inspired by the sounds coming off the stage. And Charlie Vernon is mid 70s. When his position opens up, I'm definitely going to be firing up. So, but at the same time, we just had Cleveland and San Francisco go by, and other people are winning it. I clearly have lots of I have lots of opportunity for improvement. So trying to figure out what those things are, so that when that opportunity comes, or maybe when San Francisco opera comes, or something that's, closer to our family, I can really go for it and be in a more powerful position, when those auditions come. Sure. So it's been cool. It's been a very different than symphony life, and not better or worse, but just different. And it's been fun to try to figure it out. And I'm excited for what's coming, for sure.
That's awesome, man. We can end the interview here, because I can hear that.
I know
there's stuff going on.
I just heard it too.
Yeah. All I would say, I appreciate you sharing this story, and if people have connected with it and they want to share some of their thoughts and ideas, are there ways that they could get a hold of you to kind of let you know what they thought?
Yeah. I'm on the social medias. I do less social media these days, but Will Baker Music, if you search that on, any search or any social media, you'll find me pretty easily. And whether it be, Instagram, Facebook, or even Twitter, or you can also, or X, you can also, my website is willbakermusic.com. But probably the easiest way is just through social medias.
Cool.
And yeah, that's the best way. And then come and check out a show, a lyric show or a Joffrey Ballet if you want to say hi in person or hear in person. But that's where I'm at.
Nice. Well, again, I thank you for your time and, like I said, the story, and just I feel like it was nice to reconnect with you for sure, and I'm really hoping that others found it valuable. I want to thank Brandon Yoakum for his work on mastering this episode of the podcast. You can find more information about Brandon at epiphanyrecordingstudio.com. I want to thank Masa Otake for taking care of all the video for the YouTube video on this. He's the best. And most of all, I want to thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you in the next one.